But no, but I mean, it's the first thing that you have to do. It's also going to be the thing that you're going to use more of your body for. You're going to be more emotional with your arm and the way that you swing your arm when you're doing skies and things like that. So, but the point is that it is the furthest thing away from you. So start there first. Bring your color towards you. Just work away and bring it all towards you. It's that simple. Layers are the first thing that I keep in mind when I start doing a piece of work, a project. It keeps me organized in my head to first break it down to know where I'm going to go with it.
What's going on, everybody? This is episode 1 of Chalk It Up. Thanks for tuning in. Like I was saying in the intro, basically we're going to start by learning how to just break your drawing down into a few different layers. We're going to have a layer up here at the top. We're going to start with our sky. It's the furthest thing away from us. So let's just follow along here if you can. Basically what I'm doing right here is I'm trying to just establish a sky, but you gotta make sure that you reserve some of the paper here. A lot of people will just go over and start chalking the whole thing up. I like using these paint rollers too because it lifts up a lot of the chalk. You wanna save some of that color of the paper. That's the purpose of using that color paper. So then here I'm gonna go through and hit these like edges of the white where the white and the blue are separating, get some contrast going on, some highlights here, make some quick clouds. So now I'm going to start defining some maybe some bigger shapes, like a brighter section of the sky. More highlights. All right, so now I know the show's called Chalk It Up, but I do use markers a lot, basically just to change the contrast of my background and it becomes permanent. I tried doing this a lot with just chalk in the background. It didn't work. The marker really just kind of set this up as a different kind of mixed media, because now I have a black background once I start drawing these mountains in to work off of with highlights on top of it. Again, you want to use that chiseled edge. These markers that I use are ad markers by Chartpak. They just have a really cool tip to them, but you want to use that wide chisel edge on the marker if there's an optional one. I know there's a lot of the Kopaks and stuff that have the double side, but you want to use that chisel edge to your advantage to make those edges of those mountains and just get it filled in, let it dry for a second. Doing these highlights on mountains, just keep this in mind where these are going to be snow covered, and when they're snow covered, the dark color of white, like snow like that, is usually a lighter blue color. So we'll throw this in for some shadows first. I usually do the shadows first when I'm doing mountains, but it just depends on the direction they're going and whatnot. Just kind of lay those in. You can kind of just be kind of sloppy with these because these are going to get overlaid by the white because you want the highlights on the top of the shadows. Even though this is a bright color, these are the shadows. Fade those out just a little bit just because it creates different texture throughout it. You want to save some of that though. So now with a lighter color, we're going to get in here, kind of PBS bob these right down, kind of almost like the side of a palette knife. Just pull those down, and you want to preserve them as much as you can. You don't want to muddle these out. You want to save it so that it creates those little that texture on the paper. Canson has a light texture and a heavy texture side. I like using the lighter texture side. You guys can mess with that if you want to, but I like the lighter texture because there still is texture to it, but not too much. Clean up some of that chalk there. I cleaned it up at the bottom. And I'm going back in here with my marker. I'm going to just start doing on another layer. All right, this is we're going to layer on top of these mountains now. We're going to kind of follow these contours, get some trees. We'll go over the tree technique over and over because I do use this quite a bit. a lighter color marker, you'll see the color kind of fade out here a little bit, but it still gives us like a silhouette to work off of. It's not too dark because these are still pretty far away. You can see how small I'm making some of those. I'll speed this up a little bit, get ahead of the game here. All right, so now before I get too far away or too into that other background, I want to do something because I'm going to have some water down here. So we want to get like some of those highlights kind of matching those like lighter colors in the sky. Again, I pull some of that off. You know, you can use a paper towel, regular towel, whatever you want to do. But what I did there real quick now is one of the things I'll always do when I'm doing layers like this, especially ones that are far away. Don't consider it to be fog or mist. I just consider it to be like fading out the tone so that I can contrast another layer on top of it. See how now it gives you that separation between those markers and it gives you that other layer. And yeah, it does look like mist in this case, but sometimes it just fades out the color to give it depth. I'm gonna add a little bit of like some fogginess in the trees. Kind of coming through. It's just a real, you don't have to throw this in on yours if you want to. I just do it again. It helps create some depth. It kind of like sets the mood. It makes it seem like it's like morning. It's kind of like misty out in the morning or something like that. Touch those up a little, highlights because I muffle them up a little bit. I'm using that Stabilo chalk pencil on that one, not a colored pencil. You don't want to mix the wax on your paper because if you do that with the chalk, and you get any other kind of chalk over top of it, it'll never come off. Here we're adding another layer now that's going to be a little bit closer together or closer to us. Kind of just use another darker marker and kind of like separate those areas and throwing in some darker chalk for reflections on everything. Once I've established where everything is, where those trees are, then I can establish the reflections. And I don't mess too much with reflections on the mountains because they're still so far away. The trees are going to be your main concern in that. You can get into that down the road where you can throw a reflection of a mountain into the water, but I'm going to hold off on that. So a little bit of white skimming across the mountain, and now for another layer that all I'm doing is drawing over the top of this one again, over the top of everything that I've just done. And just because I'm changing the size and the scope of it, now all of a sudden it's closer to us. I'm going to establish my silhouette with that dark marker. I'm going to start throwing in some highlights. But you can see like there's really like four or five main layers in this entire drawing. You have the sky, you have the mountain range, you have that first set of trees that we did that's separated by a mist, first foreground trees, and then you have this other foreground piece that I'm doing right now here that's going to establish something that's really, really close to you, and it really sets the stage of where you are. But you can see by separating those elements, we really just did like 5 little drawings there. When I'm doing something that's up close, I usually end up throwing down some highlights to kind of set the stage. Then I'll go back through it with the marker again. Then I'll highlight it again. Then usually I'll go back through with another marker again just to kind of clean it up a little bit and add some detail. Back to that chalk colored pencil. I suggest if you're doing this, grab one of those. They're about $3 or $4. Stabilo, they're chalk pencils, so they last a really long time. You got to be careful sharpening them because you can break them really easily, but usually I can grind them down on a piece of sandpaper. It keeps them sharp, but they work really, really well. This is just like a plain old Bic marker that I'm using for this. You can really use anything, but I really suggest staying away from Sharpies because they reflect the light back and forth in your work. So you want to be careful with those. Alright, so now I'm just going to go through here, usually my white pencil and like a thin black ink pen or something like that are my last things that I'm going to use. So I'm throwing some detail here. Start far away, work your way forward. It's like the first lesson in this whole concept, this whole idea, and we'll always work from back to front and furthest away closer and mess with this. You can, just make up whatever you want, however you want to do it. Your place is your place. However you want to do it, do as many layers as you can and experiment with it. But as always, the more you do, the better your guys are going to get at this. Hopefully you guys have fun with this one. Send in what you guys do with this one. It'd be great to see. All right, guys, keep it up. Hope you guys see it on the next one. Keep chalking it up.
I have this idea for a piece, and then you start to break it apart into certain other smaller pieces, and then it starts to become together, and it might change the idea. All right, but that's circular motion. That's art. That's design.